last episode, our last session. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere, but we kind of collectively realized that, you know, we've sort of had the same more or less menu of online programming and classes and whatnot since pretty much March. And that we thought that, you know, kind of after Sukkot and after the holidays, kind of an opportunity for us to come out with a new menu of offerings and new menu of ways that we can all stay connected and engaged and learn together. So I believe it was 2 days ago in an email, some of that was outlined, and certainly more will be coming in the coming days. So stay tuned for that. So we're not going anywhere. We're all still teaching all the time. We just are kind of mixing up a little bit what we're doing and what the offerings are. So this is going to be our last session of Tikkun Olam Tuesday. And in some ways, I think it's really appropriate, one, that Lizzie's here, and I'll get more to that in a minute. And also that we're doing this in the midst of this festival of Sukkot, because I'd be remiss if I didn't speak a bit about Sukkot and a bit about the way in which I think Sukkot really speaks to so much of the Jewish experience that leads us to care about all the issues and all the work that so many folks do that we've all learned about over these past, I think it's been close to 30 sessions for those who've been with us for most, if not all of them. And that's because, you know, if you look at Sukkot, I think like an outside observer looking at Sukkot would think that it is the craziest, most insane thing you've ever imagined, right? Roy knows that I'm an avid golfer, as do others, and I love it. But if you think about golf, it's completely insane, right? Take a tiny little ball, right? Tee it up on a manicured wilderness and try to get it into a little hole that is so far away, you need a flag to know where it is. And if that's not insane enough, once you accomplish this task, do it 17 more times, right? It seems insane. And there are so many things that we all do that we're too close to realize the seeming insanity of it. And I think Sukkot is certainly one of those things. Because if you told people that the most educated, affluent minority group in America, you know, builds a flimsy hut in the backyard every autumn and camps in it, they would think that we were out of our minds, right? And there are many different reasons given for Sukkot. Yes, it's the fall harvest holiday. When we think about the bounty and food that we're privileged to have, which I think is certainly germane to much of what we do at Karsh, particularly in these past many months, really making sure that people stay fed and nourished. But it's also meant to be a commemoration of the Exodus and of our ancestors wandering through the wilderness. That our ancestors lived in these temporary, flimsy dwellings, not very well protected from the elements or from the wilderness. And Sukkot comes as a reminder every year that we didn't always have it this good. That as a people, you know, to put it in modern terms, contemporary terms, and not political terms, even though some of these terms may be loaded, and it's not how I mean them, but that we were transients, that we were migrants, that we were homeless, that we were refugees, that the dozen or so tents that now surround the block of the Glazer campus and the Karsh Center, and the half a dozen or so RVs that surround the block at the Ernest campus with folks living in them, that was us in the ancient world. And so we leave the comfort of our homes for a week every autumn, hopefully, to have some fun eating and, you know, when the weather's good, sleeping in the sukkah, but also to remind ourselves of that and to remind ourselves that because as a people collectively in our narrative, we know what it's like, that we then hopefully can use that as motivation and as an imperative to try to help the folks who are currently not just living in a sukkah for 8 days, but whose life and reality is living in a sukkah. And we also think in the midst of, you know, the economic impacts of coronavirus, of the many countless folks who, because of everything that's going on, have now found themselves, you know, without secure, without sturdy and stable housing. So I think particularly appropriate that we're sort of bringing all this to a head and putting a kind of a bow around it in all these conversations in the midst of this festival of Sukkot. I also really wanted to have Elizabeth Green on today, who's our Director of Volunteer Engagement at the Karsh Center, because for those who were with us way back when in March, we began, where the very first guest was Lila Gurkis, our Executive Director at the Karsh Center, talking about just a couple weeks in, what we were seeing and trying to do to respond to the changing landscape and dynamic in our neighborhood and in our community and the needs of our clients. And, we've been at it every single day since March. We've not closed, we've not really limited our commitment to our clients. In fact, we've really doubled down and done exponentially more to really try to take care of families and folks who are in need. And I thought that a nice way to wrap this up today would be to kind of come back home and spend a little time talking about sort of where we've been at Karsh over the last 6 months, 7 months, what we've seen, the changes we've seen, and also a little bit about kind of what's next and where we're going coming up. So Lizzie, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'll give a quick, totally insufficient bio for those who don't know Lizzie. Lizzie, in addition to just being an all-around amazing and remarkable human being who guides our volunteer engagement program at Karsh and so many other things at Karsh, most importantly, Lizzie's a homegrown Wilshire Boulevard temple, grew up at the temple, which I think is lovely and poetic, but also makes Lizzie well and uniquely suited for her role and her job, so much of which is about engaging all of us in the enterprise at the Karsh Center, because she is one of us and knows that kind of dynamic and knows that there's a Hebrew word, chush, which is sort of like that sense and feel that you can't really teach someone. So that's Lizzie, and she's amazing. And thanks for being here, Lizzie.
Thanks for having me, Rabbi, and everyone on the Zoom and FaceTime. As you've said, for me, getting to be at Karsh when I started here was so exciting. I remember Rabbi Leader announcing the plans for the Karsh Center during high holidays many years ago now, and just leaning over to my mom and saying, I'm going to work there one day. So this is a special place for me to get to be. And I think especially in the last 6 months, where there has been just so many unprecedented, new and unfathomable challenges that we as individuals and communities and a world have been facing. I feel extremely privileged to get to do this work and also have every day highlight the good in our community and between people, and really see the ways that in the face of so much that can be overwhelming, I have the blessing of getting to work with people who are seeing the ways that they can take action and help facilitate that. So I just, have fallen in love with our volunteers all over again. It's a really remarkable group of people that I get to work with who, from the beginning, we were talking about this from the early days, and as has been said in I'm sure countless moments in history before, how can I help from the beginning, and really getting to keep people plugged in as early as the middle of March. A huge shout out and eternal gratitude to our food pantry leadership, who, when we were still all figuring out what this meant to do safely and effectively, were there from the beginning, making sure that the community that they've cared for a decade plus, 30 years as a congregation, but have continued to find that nourishment and care at the Karsh Center. So yeah, I could wax poetic for a while, but I get to be situated in a very lucky spot right now.
Well, so Lizzie, you alluded to it with mentioning the food pantry leadership, but kind of maybe give us kind of the global kind of snapshot of kind of the arc of what the last 6 months or so has looked like at Karsh, and kind of how we pivoted and where we've really kind of found our niche.
Yeah, I would say the last 6 months have really been focused on understanding and providing, meeting the evolving needs of our community in Koreatown. So the mission of the Karsh Center is focused on creating a meaningful safety social service net for our neighbors in Koreatown, but we also don't have a geographic requirement. So while that sort of is our population that we use in our needs assessment of how can we be helping, is Koreatown focused, but we've actually seen clients and referrals from over, let me look at my notes because this went up recently, over 116 Southern California zip codes represented. But that's quite zoomed in. So I'd say,
well, I want to just interrupt you for a second though, to point out something we were talking about earlier, which is, that may just sound, amazing, people from all over, but something you just alluded to. Yes, we focus on Koreatown, but we have no what is often called a catchment area, right? Yeah. Because many, if I'm not mistaken, many different providers, either by function of their mission or mandate, or more often perhaps by a function of their funding, are limited relatively significantly into who they can serve. And if you live on, the east side of the street as opposed to the left side of the street, sorry, we can't feed you or we can't see you.
Yeah, and I would say, and that's largely thanks to wonderful working relationships that have not just continued but strengthened with our collaborator organizations. So I'd say working with our network of over 30 collaborator organizations and really coming together to say what does our joint community and what do the communities that we all serve need, and adjusting course accordingly. So as many of our on-site services that we do with collaborators that could be taken remote went remote as quickly as possible. So that includes our on-site ESL class with LACC went remote, legal counseling and services and telehealth for counseling have gone remote over the course of the last few months. So our on-site focus really for the last 6 months has kicked into high gear around essential items and services, particularly of groceries and childcare items, as I'm sure has been talked about before, with an emphasis on diapers and any supplemental wipes and formula and things like that we can provide to our young families in need of some extra support right now. So for context, since the pandemic began, we've given out over 23,000 bags of groceries and lunch bags, and which equals over 103,000 meals broken down. And we've given out over 104,000 diapers. So that's been a really steady need, all supported by the efforts of volunteers and our amazing staff team to get that to families who need it. And we've been doing that in partnership with other organizations, so our collaborators helping us get food to some of their most vulnerable and at-risk clients. Our Sunday food pantry, as I mentioned before, continues to be there every Sunday from 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. For clients in the neighborhood and around the city who are able to get there to come get a bag of groceries. And then we'll also make appointments for anyone who reaches out expressing need, can sign up for us with an appointment to come in and pick up a bag of groceries and diapers for their families. So through that, we've really seen a growth in our client population. We're getting referrals and references from new organizations that are have not traditionally been sending people our way. But I think because we've been open from the beginning, the community is really relying on us in new and different ways.
So 2 questions, Lizzie, that come to mind. One, 24,000 bag number, 100 and whatever thousand meal number, and the 100,000 plus diaper number, those, just to be clear, represent a significant certainly year over year increase, but increase, in a COVID world versus pre-COVID world.
Big time. I would say, for example, in the first 3 months of the pandemic, I believe we gave out close to, if not more than, the amount of diapers that we've given out in the whole previous fiscal year. And that was not a new program. I mean, we had a well-established diaper distribution program in the community, but that's really been a need. And I'll say the Temple congregation and our community of support has been really wonderful in, Women of Wilshire put out a call for diaper collection toward the end of the summer and really got us through several months, and those diaper donations continue to be rolling in. So the community has rallied to make this happen. And I would say the same with food as well. And I was talking with one of our volunteers recently who has kind of done the cycle through all of our volunteer activities lately. And he was saying, in his anecdotal feedback he's getting from clients who he's working with to hand off grocery bags, that our grocery bags are non-perishable staples that we know from food pantry work for many years, are helpful to our clients and the community can put to good use. And really heavy emphasis on fresh produce. I spoke here on one of these Tuesdays a couple months ago with Betsy from Food Forward, and we continue to be getting produce from Food Forward and a lot of other great sources around the city. So I think having that access to continued fresh, healthy fruits and vegetables in addition to the pantry staples has been especially important to the families we work with at this time.
I want to go back to diapers for a second, because I think people are like, oh, diapers, but I don't think many of us really understand why diapers are so needed. Other than the fact that, kids go through diapers, and then I think you forget how many they go through. I know I did. And then we had another kid and I think, oh my God, so many diapers. But right. So kind of maybe articulate a little bit about the need for diapers, I guess, and kind of the diaper crisis, if it were.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, Beau, as a parent, you probably can speak to this a little bit more effectively than I can. But we know that our client population sort of has increasingly been skewing toward younger families. So we're seeing on a Wednesday when we do diaper distribution, we've seen on a busy Wednesday as many as 120 clients over the course of a day, roughly. And we're giving out, we're not able to give out an amount that will be a child's whole source of diapers for the month. But we know from feedback from clients that's really the items that make a difference. When you think about sort of the hierarchy of where you're cutting costs, you can't do that for your child. And diapers are expensive. Yeah. It's expensive. You can't really fudge that. So I would say, yeah.
I'm just looking. The most recent stat is 1 in 3 families experience diaper shortage needs, which is defined as not feeling like you can change your child's diaper, even though it's necessary because you either don't have or don't have enough, and you're trying to ration, for the rest of the day. Yeah. And I remember reading that kind of thing years ago and being sort of moved by it. And then having a child and changing their diaper and thinking your kid's going to sit with a dirty diaper because it's not their choice. It's just heartbreaking. Yeah, Merle.
Also, at the beginning of COVID, diapers were being hoarded.
Yep. Along with paper towels and
We at the beginning, before everything really went into full bloom, we were in Rocky Point, and friends of our kids asked us to go to Walmart at Rocky Point or Sam's Club or something and pick them up diapers, because there were no diapers in the city of Scottsdale and most of Phoenix, and they had babies. So when we were coming back and we went through the Border Patrol and the guy saw the amount of diapers in the back of our 2 cars, he was blown away. He wasn't upset, and we weren't hoarding, but we got them enough between our 2 families. We got them enough diapers to last them at least 2 weeks, which is, not great. You know, you can't save diapers. You can't wash them. You can't.
Yeah.
When I saw that wow thing, I was very excited to be able to send diapers through, I don't know, I did it through Amazon or Target or something. And I would be more than happy to do it again if the temple sent out something about the diapers, because it's really necessary.
Thank you so much.
Lori, I saw you just in the chat mention your concern for our food pantry program in Santa Monica, that you are a devoted volunteer from before, predating me. So, you know, since I don't know if it's the very beginning, but close to the very beginning. But just
close to the very beginning, yeah.
Just as a point of information, you and Don, by the way, I think are the only two from the beginning days. That we, so as folks may know, we run a food pantry program in Santa Monica. We do 240 lunches for clients at the People Concern. We've continued to run that program. We've continued to fund that program, which is a significant cost for us throughout, because of our commitment to those folks who depend on us to eat every week. And we've continued to do that even though our volunteers can't be a part of that distribution. People Concerned staff is and continue to do that to make sure that those folks that depend on us get fed every week and get their coffee and all of it. And we made a commitment to continue to, you know, to fund that throughout because of that commitment. So they're still running our program for us while we're not able to actually run it ourselves.
Well, that's good. That was part of my question. And Lizzie, I'm really happy to know that ESL continued remotely, because I was worried about that group too. So Lori, that's great to know.
And I'll say, Lori, so not only has been a People Concerned volunteer, a Samo Sandwich Sunday volunteer, I like a good alliterative brand, but also was a volunteer teaching assistant with our ESL class in the early days of the winter. It helped us design civic engagement programming with a really robust plan for census outreach, which was going to culminate in April. So I will say, to speak to the census, we've also, you know, that was a big change and something we were really excited to be. We were originally designated to be a census kiosk site for the community to come to Karsh, since so much of it was going to be emphasized on filling out your census online. We were going to be a site to host for members of the community to come fill it out. That, of course, was not able to happen. So we've mobilized, and in the last month, with a heavy emphasis in the last month, been communicating with clients and doing remote outreach to our community to encourage completing the census and make sure everyone knew the details of how to do that and help them fill it out. We just learned yesterday on the uscensus.gov site, the end date of the census was pushed to October 31st, or pushed back to October 31st. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks as that deadline has been shifting, and trying to really quickly mobilize to make sure as many members of our community can be counted. Because I think the numbers that are determined by the census have a really significant impact on federally funded programs that we know our community heavily relies on. So I would say in the Karsh Center civic engagement programs that we've been able to take remote, that's been a really big emphasis of the last few weeks in particular. We've made hundreds of calls to clients, and thanks to the Purim with a Purpose program that the Wilshire Boulevard Temple Religious School ran, and donations that were collected by Browerman, we were able to, at the transition of summer back to the school year, asked if clients had completed the census and had their confirmation number, we would give them a back to school bag. So lots of, really trying to continue to mobilize the community around that, even though we can't have people in our lobby filling it out. So Lori, you laid really important groundwork for that. So it's happening.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad it continued. That's the important part. So
Lizzie, I got one more question about diapers that just came into my inbox. that if folks want to buy, donate diapers, Amazon, whatever, can they have those sent straight to Karsh or to the temple, or do they
Yeah,
should send
straight to
themselves?
Karsh. Straight to Karsh is great. We definitely go through the bigger sizes more quickly. So we seem to go more quickly through sizes 5 and 6 and pull-ups. But if anyone is interested, you can also, you can have them sent straight to the Karsh Center. But if you email me, which you can do about this or any other volunteer questions at just volunteers@karshcenter.org. Or elizabeth@karshcenter.org, and we can post that afterward. I can give you the address, and if you let me know they're coming, we can make sure to keep an eye out for them and let you know when they arrive.
Awesome. One other thing that I kind of want to go back to, because we're talking about we were talking about ESL being virtual and remote, and about as other services come back online, like I know Vision opened last week, I think. Right?
Yeah, so last week was our pilot run of having our vision care back on site, and with a limited number of clients coming back in for that service. And it's so nice to have people back that way. It's really, it feels just a little bit more Karshy again.
Right. And I guess a dental's on the horizon, maybe for next month, we hope. But on the virtual piece, and we actually didn't speak about this earlier, but Francis and I were talking about this idea of bringing other services back in sort of a almost pseudo virtual kind of way, where like Southern California Counseling Center, for example, right, where a client might theoretically come to us, right? Because one of the themes that's come up in so many of our conversations is the technology gap. Mm-hmm. And the fact that so many of folks who need so many of our clients really lack the access to the technology that we are all using right now to participate in this. Even if they have a smartphone. So the idea that a client could come to us, could sit in our mental health suite in front of a computer and have a therapy session with their therapist who's not on site, who's at their home or at their office elsewhere, or an attorney in the same way, but be able to kind of do a virtual, on-site virtual experience so that they have access to that.
Yeah, it's something, it's a great point. And I would say even there are also several households, thinking about the family structures that a lot of our clients have, that even if you have that technology in the home, if your child is home, using the family computer for school, or just needs the bandwidth to be able to have class from home. I mean, you sort of have your hierarchy of who gets to use that tech if you have it. I would say the same with also maybe you have the tech, but internet access as your house is more limited. That was something we were hearing a lot during the summer of people who had access through whatever school options their child had, but then come summer vacation, that changed. So the tech piece is really important, and it's something that we continue to think through, as you mentioned, that possible structure for being a remote meeting site, like having a physical remote meeting site. And that's something we continue to hear from a lot of our collaborators, as well as sort of, okay, how do we in this next phase of things address that issue? So that is, Francis can speak a little bit more specifically to where we are on that right now, but it's definitely a priority.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also just a kind of in some ways a creative way to try to address clearly an issue that we're all encountering.
Yeah.
And you make a great point, which I hadn't thought about, which is the bandwidth and just number of devices in a house, right? That if you have one laptop in the house and your kid's got to be on their Zoom school or whatever, then you're not using that for, anything else. Yeah. Not to mention, I think many of us have experienced what happens when everybody in the house just tries to be on Zoom at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Does not go so well. Now, sort of moving forward, I would say, Lizzie, kind of into phase 2, right? As we're sort of starting to reopen, what's on tap for the next month or two? Do we have anything coming up in November?
Well, in as spoiler-free of a teaser as possible, I mean, you and I will be speaking 3 times today about Big Give, or 3 times in the next couple of days. So there's this event that we all know and love called the Big Give.
Yeah.
which is our annual Thanksgiving distribution event. You will all hear more details very soon, but I will say our commitment to the community has remained steadfast throughout this time of crisis in the last 6 months. It will certainly continue and be amplified come Thanksgiving. So, we think that the consistency of food and nourishment, and also the comfort that having your Thanksgiving meal with a family and access to that we are proud to have been able to offer for the last 11 years. This is going to be year 12. We are doing some very safe and creative restructuring to continue to make this possible for this year. So what I will say is, everyone, stay tuned to your inboxes for more updates.
It's safe to say it's absolutely happening. It'll look a little different, right? It'll look a little different, but we're still committed to it. And I think maybe I'm breaking the rules by saying this, but I'll just share that we're actually in some ways even more committed to it, because we're going to do more bags and more meals because of the increased demand that we've experienced, all year. Yeah. This felt like, first of all and foremost, a year in which it would be unconscionable to not show up for the families that depend on us to have Thanksgiving, and all the more so that there are even more who probably need us to help them have a meaningful Thanksgiving. So we're going to do that. And as Lizzie said, stay tuned for how you can help and participate.
Well, I'll say, I think, for those of you who participated in last year's Big Give, that was a new format again. So now we're on our second new format. But last year's event, I think part of what was so important and beautiful about it is it really, by having the event on 6th Street and the resource and activities fair that we did, we really built community in even newer and more different ways than we had in previous years. And I think that that's another component of the event that we are committed to holding on to this year. And it has been, I would say, especially on the volunteer side of things, and I'm hearing this from other organizations in the city, there is this kind of creative space that has opened up by having remote activities and the ability to connect a little bit more broadly, and not be bounded by geography and needing to deal with a commute in rush hour to come volunteer. So I think we are hoping to be able to create similar spaces to bring people together around community building activities and learning and training and service that will also be part of the Big Give format moving forward. So, yeah.
Well, I know we're all looking forward to it.
There's a lot of code speak right now, but I get so excited. I'm just trying to make sure I don't spill any beans too soon.
Questions?
Also, I'm seeing, Merle, I just saw your chat that you also are volunteer management and coordination background. So I would love
to putting Merle on that committee we're working on.
I would love to have a virtual coffee soon and learn more.
Anytime you want. Just, I have no clue how to set any of this stuff up. So
I can do that.
You can do that, and we can certainly make time to talk. I mean, a lot of my material is outdated, but as I wander around the world, my little city here, I see more and more ways to create what was outdated and make it more relevant, especially in times like now where we're stuck. I mean, I'd come work the Big Dig if I could, but I can't because of remoteness and all of our family being here. But I think the stuff that you guys have done at Karsh is so beyond incredible that it's amazing.
Thanks,
and
Mom.
So, with your background and what you're doing, that's really important too, because you need the bodies to do the work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I saw another hand.
No problem.
Yeah. Hi.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? It's Anessa Carney. I'm a congregant. I just wanted to, I came on, I wanted to know what are some of the opportunities just as a congregant, if you want to devote some hours to the Karsh Center? How do you do that?
Yeah, great question. Hi, Anessa. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So our activities right now on site are primarily focused, if you want to get hands-on, which there are certainly ways to do, are primarily focused on food and diaper prep. So we have over the course of a week they are very regimented shifts right now for safety purposes and a really robust safety and wellness protocol on site. But we have volunteers helping pack bags of groceries, pick up donations of produce from the farmer's market, sort it here on site. If you want to spend a couple hours elbow deep in plums, that's the activity I've gotten a lot of feedback on in the last week. We had a lot of people plugged in on plums, assembling larger bags of groceries, helping pass those off to other organizations and people, our clients who come to site to pick up, breaking down boxes of diapers into smaller bundles of diapers to give out. And then any number of kind of sorting essential items. I've got so fortunate to have several hundred hygiene kits now that we collected over the weekend for our clients at the People Concern. So helping us sort through those and get those to where they need to go. There's a lot of different activities like that. And then increasingly, as we sort of get the protocols and the technology in place to be doing outreach to clients for different resources that might be coming up. So as I mentioned, we have a handful of volunteers who are helping us with census promotion right now. And that's been a really great way of understanding how we can get people trained and what are the resources we need for people to be able to make those calls. So I'd say in the coming months also, there will be continuing to be more opportunities like that. So I would say the best first step, if you visit the Karsh Center website, which is just www.karshcenter.org, and you can click the volunteer button. There's a brief outline of the different roles that now. Step one would be to submit an application, and that's just you have your basic profile info and a little bit more information on what you're comfortable doing and what will make you feel safe to be involved with. And then we'll go from there and we'll set up a time to talk through what's available and get you signed up. Okay, perfect. Okay. Happy to hear the options. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say also, like I said, we work with 30 plus other organizations. So if there's something that you're really interested in doing that might not be a focal point of what we're up to here, I'm always happy to help connect you with other really fantastic groups across the city. Okay. So please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah. Absolutely.
Other thoughts, questions, comments? Yeah, Roy?
Just have a sort of question, because this pandemic's now gone on for 6 some odd months, and there's been government assistance, and then there's been inaction. I'm just curious what the sort of zeitgeist, I guess, of the emotional character of the clients. I mean, is there any sense of increasing desperation, or are people just sort of, stoically plodding through? What do you get a sense of any change for the better, for the worse?
I would say, we have a really diverse group of clients. So I would say as many experiences as everyone on this call is probably feeling could be true of our client population as well. Certainly our clients are, experiencing kind of a wide array of new challenges and difficulties and navigating them, I think, like we all are. But we have, I would say, a really resilient, amazing group of folks who are coming to us for that support. And I think a lot of the concerns that we are hearing and anticipating are kind of around, and this is as much, I would say, from collaborator organizations with feedback and needs and experiences in the community from all of the different points of contact that we're having, like looking ahead toward what happens in the coming months as protections change around housing, as the conversation continues to evolve around in-person school, and then just within the community, people's different levels of comfort and risk depending on their own health scenarios and that of who they're living with and their family members. So I would say kind of those level of concerns are really coming up around the protections for housing and employment are the big issues. I mean, we saw in an assessment we did toward the beginning of the pandemic, like the middle of the pandemic, or pandemic so far, the middle of these 6 months, I think we learned that something like 80% of our clients lost some degree of employment. So really feeling the fallout from that. I'll say we actually on October 14th, we are, Roy, this is a bit off of that topic, but kind of coming out of there. We are in collaboration with JAMS, Inner City Law Center, and Women Lawyer Association of Los Angeles, hosting an online event. It's a legal training for attorneys on housing rights and cultural sensitivity in the age of COVID-19, kind of anticipating, and it's a session that sort of does not require further participation, but tees up additional training that Inner City Law Center is doing to train up a core of attorneys in anticipation of eviction and a wave of evictions that might be coming down the line as those protections expire. So that's on October 14th from 5 to 7:30 on Zoom. If anyone is interested in joining that and hearing a little bit more from an expert.
You have to be an attorney to join, Lizzie?
You do not have to be an attorney to join. To take on pro bono cases from there on out, you do. And for attorneys, there is MCLE credit involved, but it also will be a session, I think, that will provide good information.
I mean, it is an issue we spoke about this morning that I think, gets varying degrees of attention. And when it does, it's for a minute and then it's moved on. But that, I think many of us remember one of our guests earlier in this series, David Lash, who's a pro bono attorney. David and I were speaking a week or two ago, and he said nationally there's this same effort to really train up volunteers and preparing for, the word he used was avalanche of litigation and cases surrounding evictions, because there's been all over the place, right? Stays on evictions, and people don't have to pay their rent, but the rent doesn't get forgiven. So it just ends up as a balloon payment down the road, which probably makes things worse for these folks. And then at some point, unless there's legislative changes, that these protections will expire, and that there are, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, who may be subject to eviction. And what is that, catastrophe really gonna look like? So it's
did I answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complex. It's a complex question. I mean, it's just, but there's different communities too, and if people are now sort of extended period without income, et cetera, does that then have an impact? But
yeah, Roy, anecdotally, I think that, and this is just from speaking to other collaborators and folks who are a little more on the ground, that it's better and worse, maybe, right? Because all of us, to different degrees, are dealing with, different aspects of this crisis and how it has changed our lives. Some more an inconvenience, some more of an actual, real challenge, and that's challenging for us. Most of us who don't have to deal with such things on a daily basis. Our clients, while in many ways are dealing with more elements of crisis, and in some ways more catastrophic crisis because they're dealing with eviction or they're dealing with, no income or what have you, their baseline of crisis that they deal with in their lives, in many cases, is much greater than ours, right? So, on the one hand, it's just an exacerbation of their status quo of sort of living in crisis and having to cope with so many challenges. And on the other hand, the depth of that crisis is, unimaginable. Again, when we're thinking about losing homes and we're thinking about, literally how is dinner going to go on the table tonight? And at the same time, I have to figure out how to educate my kid and, 9 other things. So I think, for those who were with us last week, a really interesting conversation with Gabby Kaufman, who runs Maternal Mental Health Now. And there was a piece of the conversation in which we're talking about the anxiety that is just omnipresent, I think, in society and all of us right now. And she was talking about the empathy that it has created, because we're all in different ways, but experiencing the same thing, right? And the same, it's manifesting itself in different ways, and the challenges that arise are different, but that there is a gained empathy. She used the example of patients she has, clients she has, who have obsessive compulsive disorder and who have always spent their lives, washing their hands incessantly and not wanting to touch surfaces. And now suddenly, they feel vindicated, and we can empathize with them because we're all doing the same thing too, right? But there is this, I think, sort of baseline of anxiety about the uncertainty of the situation and the uncertainty of the future, and the myriad challenges that creates in all of our lives, that hopefully creates a sense of empathy, so that we can empathize with our clients in a different way, because to lesser and greater degrees, we're all in this together. Right. Well, Lizzie, thank you for your time. I know you're in the office today on the front line, so thank you for taking some time away from the volunteers we have on site today and from the clients we have on site today to be with us. And thanks for batting cleanup here on our finale. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Nancy, thanks for good to see you on Sunday too with our hygiene distribution, you and Ian. Thank you.
Nancy was over here last week working on diapers.
I think you guys also win the award for the largest single donation of hygiene kits, I think. So, trophies in the mail. And thank you all for joining today. And thanks to everybody who's taken time out of their Tuesdays since March to have conversations, to learn a little bit, and I guess maybe more than anything, just to be together in this time in which we're not physically together. So I deeply appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and on to the next chapter. And so stay tuned for what's next, and stay involved. If you don't already follow us on social media, do that, because it's the best and easiest, quickest way to stay abreast of everything that's happening at Karsh at the Temple. So thank you very much, everybody, again, for making a little time on your Tuesday, and have a wonderful rest of the day, a wonderful rest of Sukkot, and see you all very soon. Hag Sameach.
Thank you for making this available to us.
Yeah, thank you.
It was really beneficial. I learned much about,
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Take
Lizzie,
care.
it was great to see you.
Great to see you, Lori. Mwah.
right.
You
See everyone
too.
tomorrow too.
Okay.
You.